They are among the most powerful forces on Earth, with swirling winds of more than 300 miles per hour and the strength to destroy nearly everything in their path. They account for 60 deaths and millions of dollars in property damage each year. They're called whirlwinds, funnels, twisters. These are tornadoes.
You can feel the ground shaking. Feels like a continuous small earthquake. And suddenly I realized that everything around me began to just suddenly started to lift. And I had debris hitting the car, and things were lifting and lifting and lifting, and it's coming right at us. And I'm not going to see my wife. I'm not going to see my daughter again. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my life out here.
From the British Isles to the French countryside to the heartland of the United States, tornadoes have been tearing up the landscape, decimating buildings, homes, and entire communities. Now, there is growing concern that the number of twisters and the regions they encompass may be changing, due largely in part to the effects of global warming. Fortunately, advances in science and technology are also on the rise, giving government agencies and broadcasters increasingly more time to warn the public of impending disaster. Will new science in weather forecasting help mitigate this increasing threat? They can occur wherever cold, dry air hits moist, warm air high in the atmosphere. Tornadoes have touched down in every continent except Antarctica, appearing where you least expect them.
There are a few dozen cases a year in France, and roughly speaking, almost 95% of tornadoes in France are of low intensity, with winds estimated at less than 200 kilometers per hour. Violent tornadoes, even if they are exceptional, can occur in France. There is no construction that is completely safe from these phenomena.
But of all the tornadoes on planet Earth, most are happening in a region of the United States known as Tornado Alley, where an estimated 75% of the world's tornadoes take place, an average of more than 1,000 twisters every year, 4 times more than in all of Europe.
The central part of the United States is really the perfect laboratory to create the storms that make tornadoes. We have lots of warm, moist air that comes up from the Gulf of Mexico, and lots of cold, dry air that comes over from the Rocky Mountains. And those are the ingredients that allow us to get thunderstorms, that warm, moist air underneath that cold, dry air. But we also have the winds changing direction with height, coming from out of the south at low levels and out of the west from over the mountains. And that produces the kind of storms that actually rotate, that are much more likely to make thunderstorms that'll produce tornadoes. And it's really the only place on the planet where that happens a lot of the time.
Tornadoes get their energy from thunderstorms, and thunderstorms get their energy from the warming that occurs during the day. A bit like a hot air balloon. It rises because it is warmer than the air around it, and therefore thunderstorms will form precisely when we have air close to the ground, which is really heated, which will rise, and as long as it is warmer than the air around it, it will continue to rise. So, it will form the cloud. And then the cloud, which will be able to extend to the top of the troposphere at more than 10, 12, sometimes even 14 kilometers of altitude. And so, as the day goes on, the energy is stored near the ground. This is where thunderstorms will mainly occur. All the violent phenomena associated with thunderstorms, such as tornadoes, gusts of wind, heavy hail, or heavy rain.
Central Oklahoma is a fertile breeding ground that produces more tornadoes per square mile than anywhere else on Earth. It is a place husband and wife storm trackers Val and Amy Custer call home. They live in the city of Stillwater with their 6 kids.
I have to be willing to switch gears from being a mom and a homeschool teacher to a storm tracker in the field. Usually we start our day off looking at computer models, especially when we've been looking ahead for a week or so out. out and we see trends that might lead us to believe there could be a potential storm chase day coming up.
Growing up, I really liked weather. As I got older, that grew, and eventually it led to having a passion to chase storms and having a passion to warn people and try to keep people safe.
I really think I got the bug for storm chasing when I was a child growing up in southwest Oklahoma. There is just wide open plains there, and it's just so fantastic because you would see the storms come in from the Texas Panhandle, and to me it was always very exciting.
Landing an internship at KWTV Channel 9 in Oklahoma City, Amy met Val Castor.
We started a really great friendship, and so much so that he wanted me to chase storms with him. One day we were chasing storms in the Texas Panhandle, and we were coming back into Oklahoma, and he pulled off on the side of the road and jumped out of the truck, and he asked me to marry him.
I wished it could have been in front of a tornado. That would have been so awesome, right? Proposing in front of a tornado, but then we would have had to have somebody on camera to get it.
Early this morning over in Norman, Oklahoma, meteorologist and storm researcher Eric Rasmussen begins his workday.
First thing we do really is to turn on the computer and start looking at the weather data. Before breakfast even, we look at all the satellite images and we look at all the computer model outputs and try to get a sense of what the target region might be.
Eric and his colleagues work at the National Severe Storm Laboratory and the National Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, part of the United States government's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA.
The folks in the Storm Prediction Center are continually monitoring the weather from all across the United States, including the radars, the computer guidance, all the surface observations. So they're keenly focused on how those conditions are evolving and whether or not it will be necessary to issue a severe thunderstorm or tornado watch, which they would then send out to the appropriate forecast offices and to the media.
After decades of being dismissed by more mainstream weather data collecting sources, storm trackers like Val and Amy have become an integral part of tornado warning operations of the National Weather Service.
As storm chasers, our primary role is to warn the public about severe weather. And when we go out, we always take a moment and we pray for the people of Oklahoma because what we do in the field is very important.
Val and Amy are assisted in their hunt for tornadoes by the high-tech equipment in their mobile truck, including a rooftop camera controlled by a joystick.
I have the ability to turn the camera 360 degrees, and why that is so important is because when a storm is back behind the truck and we're having to adjust our road options and go with the flow of the storm, sometimes we're having to drive away from it, sometimes we're driving toward it.
We also have a computer that's mounted there with a GPS readout on it. In the truck, we also have Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi allows us to see the radar and see it in real time. Sometimes, that is a lifesaver as far as we're concerned.
We also use a computer where I do a lot of video editing, and that video gets sent back to News 9 to be used on the air. We work closely with David Payne, Chief Meteorologist at News 9, and he will just collaborate with us, and we'll talk about where he wants us placed, where we might need other chasers placed. The goal is to always try to be in the best spot with the strongest storm.
David Payne is the chief meteorologist at Channel 9 KWTV in Oklahoma City. The station has long been considered a pioneer in severe weather coverage.
I was born and raised here in Oklahoma. Whenever there was any chance of storms or any severe weather growing up, I was so glued to the TV set, and I just wanted to see what was going on, and always has been such a big part of my DNA. The one thing about Oklahoma weather is how violent our weather can become. We have more tornadoes per square mile